Hello, welcome back to Saints Live. I'm Kenzie Benali.
And I'm Steve Forbes.
And today, Southampton will be looking to make it back-to-back wins as they host West Brom at St Mary's. And as always, we have a packed show to take you up to kick-off.
Yeah, but it's time to introduce our guest for today. Returning is former Saints captain Dean Hammond, and making his Saints Live debut is the lead soccer writer for NBC Sport. It's Joe Prince-Wright. How are you guys doing this afternoon?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dean. I'm doing well. Now, Joe, your first time on the show. You feeling ready for it?
Just about, yeah. Thanks for having me on. I love watching this as a Saints fan, so it's great to be involved.
Amazing stuff.
It's a pleasure to have you both with us. We're going to jump straight into the team news now because, of course, it has been announced. Ralph Hasenhüttl has named an unchanged side to face West Brom today. So before we discuss it, let's take you through it. In goal, Alex McCarthy. Making up the defence, Ryan Bertrand, Yannick Vestergaard, Jan Bednarek and Carl Walker-Peters. Across the middle, Moussa Djenepo, Oriol Romeo, our captain James Ward-Prowse and Stuart Armstrong. And completing the starting 11 is our attacking duo Danny Ings and Shea Adams. Southampton's substitutes for today then, Fraser Forster, Jack Stevens, Shane Long, Nathan Redmond, Michael Obafemi, Jan Valery and Will Smallbone. So Joe, you can kick us off if you like, as it's your debut on Saints Live. What do you make of Ralph's lineup for today?
Sorry guys, I struggled to hear you on that first question.
Oh, that's okay. We're having some connection issues to kick us off. Joe, we said, what did you make of that lineup to take on West Brom today?
Yeah, I think it's obviously solid enough. I think with Vestergaard playing so well against Burnley last week, it makes a lot of sense to have him in. Yeah, the only one would have been seeing Nathan Redmond coming straight back in after injury, but obviously having on the bench is a very good option. So I think given the clean sheet and the solid performance at Burnley, makes sense to kind of stay with the same 11.
Absolutely. Dean, I know that's generally your mentality. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So are you pleased to see an unchanged side today?
Yeah, I think the manager's made the right decision. The performance last week was very assured, very professional. It gained 3 points, so to keep the same team is a sensible decision, I think. The only option you could have changed was Redmond coming in. I agree with Joe that potentially that could have been one change, because I think then that would be the strongest team that Southampton have at the present moment, the squad they have. But Djenepo is developing. You know, his work effort has been excellent. He needs to bring that little bit of craft and creativity to his game that we all know he has, that bit of magic. But no, I like the team, and Vestergaard keeping his position after a very solid, disciplined performance by himself. I think it's the right decision, and it's a strong team for Southampton today.
Yeah, Dean, you mentioned Vestergaard there. A lot of people were impressed with his performance last time. Was Ralph right to keep him in rather than bring Stevens back into the fold?
Yeah, I think it's right. I think if you give a player an opportunity and he performs well, and you win a game, he deserves the right to keep the shirt. And so the managers believe in that. And one thing that you're getting, he's earning the manager's trust. I like him as a defender. I think he defends well. He does the basics well, where it may not be eye-catching, but he heads the ball well. He has good connection on clearances. The team kept a clean sheet. He likes to defend. He was actually very calm and composed in possession last week, which was good, and one part of his game that he can be questioned on. But no, I like him as a defender, and he played really well last week. He looked really assured. He dominated the back four. He looks as though he's a good communicator, and I think that's what the back four needs at the present time. But, you know, Jack's a little bit unlucky because he played well last year. But I always believe as a player, if you play well, you perform well and you win, you deserve the right to go again.
Joe, what are your thoughts on this? How do you assess Ralph's options at centre-back?
Yeah, I think it's always, like Dean said, when you get an opportunity, you have to take it. So it's great that Yannick has taken that, but it's all about these partnerships, right? I mean, last season, Jack and obviously Jan played really, really well and formed that partnership. And when that was broken up, it was a little bit disjointed at times. But, you know, I used to play alongside, growing up in Southampton, one of Dean's former Saints teammates, Aaron Martin, at centre-back for Hampshire schoolboys and stuff. Obviously, at a much different level, but you always had that partnership and understanding. If you're going to play a high line, one of the centre-backs takes the first knock, the other one sweeping in behind. And I think with Saints' centre-backs now, they seem to have that understanding. But with the manager wanting to play a high line and get Alex McCarthy out of his goal, almost playing as a sweeper keeper, you need to have that understanding at centre-back. And with Yannick and Jan playing together, I feel like they had that against Burnley and it works really well. So I'm hoping that they can get that understanding right and carry that on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, another player who's kept his place in the team is Shea Adams. Dean, what have you made of his contribution to the team so far this season? And do you think today is a perfect opportunity for him to open up his account?
Yeah, it'd be a great opportunity to open up his account. I think you're right there. His contribution's been excellent. I think he's improving his all-round game. One thing he looks is happier. One thing he looks is leaner and fitter. And I think that's helping his game. His assist last week was excellent. His movement off the ball and then his awareness to slide it back to Danny Ings to score was excellent. So them two are building a partnership and they're combining well and they're looking to play together. So I really like them two playing together. They're very, very dangerous. They've got different attributes, but they are forming a partnership, and that's really important. And I think one thing I mentioned it at Vestergaard, he's earned the manager's trust. The manager trusts him now, and when you've got that as a player, it really builds your confidence. The players look like they trust him now. So he'll be going into each game confident. Yes, does he need to score? Does he need to get a goal as a striker? Definitely. But if he's combining well and Danny Ings is scoring and he's assisting that, then that's just as effective. So, no, I like Shea. I've played with Shea at Sheffield United. I know all about him, and he's getting better and better. And he's still young. So I think it's been a good investment. I think he started the season well. Could he have taken some opportunities in games? Possibly. But he has hit the target and he looks sharp. So I think he's doing pretty well.
Joe, how do you assess Southampton's attacking four then? Who do you think are the best options?
I think probably Ings and Adams with that partnership is the standout partnership up top, and then Redmond and Armstrong behind them. For me, give the perfect balance of Armstrong cutting inside, linking up midfield and attack. Definitely missed him at the start of the season. And Redmond, I think, obviously is a lot of tricks and a wonderful player, but maybe just consistency-wise of his game, he's still trying to get to that level where, as Redmond, you kind of know what you're going to get each and every week, and I think he has that understanding with Danny Ings, and on the break they seem to link up really well on counter-attack situations. So for me, those are the best four, but I think Gineppo obviously played really well against Tottenham, and I think it might suit him today that West Brom are going to attack and leave a lot of gaps. And I think whatever options that Ralph has, he has a lot of players up there now. But for me, the best four are Redmond and Armstrong behind Ings and Adams.
Yeah, Joe, sticking with you, it is transfer deadline day tomorrow. The window closes at 11. What business would you like Saints to do in the closing hours?
I think like most Southampton fans, I would like to see a new midfield option come in because, with players departing this summer so far, I just think we need a bit more strength and depth in that area. But I think what we've got to be careful with is, and the manager said this many times, the young players need to have that pathway to the first team. You don't want to be bringing in players, squad players if you will, for the sake of it, and clog up their development and their pathway to the first team. So if you're going to bring a midfield player in, it has to be someone who's really going to be pushing to start right away. So there's obviously a lot of good players that have been linked with, and I think it's going to be, from what the manager said, maybe a good end to the window for Saints, and hopefully we can get the 2 or 3 players in that we need.
Well, we know what deadline day is like as fans, but Dean, actually, you know the flip side of it. What's it like as a player, and did you ever have your own experience of some deadline day drama?
Well, it's very interesting. It's quite exciting around the dressing room. A lot of players are on their mobiles quite a bit more than usual, waiting for a phone call potentially. I think some players even want to train with their mobile sometimes on the day. But yeah, I have had a couple of experiences on deadline day. One would be really towards the end of my career when I was at Leicester, and I was going to Sheffield United. It was on deadline day. It'd been kind of going on for a couple of weeks, but hadn't happened. The clubs couldn't agree a fee. Personal terms were a little bit difficult, but they were getting closer and closer. Leicester had an option of a player they wanted to bring in to replace me, but that was a foreign signing, so it was getting held up and different things were going on. The details of the transfer were difficult. So I was told to drive to Sheffield United, so to Sheffield, but I wasn't allowed to be seen. So I drove to Sheffield. I had to wait in some services and just kind of sit in my car. I think I was sitting there for like 3 hours.
Were you in disguise? Little sunglasses and a cap?
No, I just sat in my car, just waiting for the phone to ring. I get a phone call from my agent. I get a phone call from the assistant manager, who was Dean Wilkins at the time, who was at Southampton previously, and Nigel Atkins was the manager. So I was in discussion with them, and then speaking to Leicester to see what happened. And it was just to and fro. Wasn't going to happen. Was going to happen. And it just came down to the fact that I wanted to sign on a permanent deal. Leicester were waiting for a player to come in. That didn't happen. They couldn't agree a fee that was going to, because there was going to be a big difference in wages, and the fee that was going to be paid for me was actually going to come sort of paid to me to make up the money that I was going to miss out at Leicester, if that makes sense, to then cover my wages at Sheffield United. So there were some complications to it. It didn't happen. So yeah, I turned my car around and drove home, and actually got injured the next day. So it was, I don't know if that was sitting in the car all day, but I hurt my Achilles the next day. And but the move did eventually happen. I moved on loan about 6 weeks later. So yeah, interesting day, but yeah, it's always exciting. There's always players hanging around the training ground more than they usually would, put it that way.
You never thought about pulling a Peter Odemwingie and just like driving to the stadium and trying to force it through?
I probably thought about it when I was sitting at the services thinking, maybe I'll just force this move through, but no, never done that.
Dude, if Saints don't add to the squad in this window, how do you think they're going to shape up until it reopens again in January?
Well, I think the advantage they've got is the fact that it's October already, so you've got 3 months. So if the squad is not strengthened, it's not such a long period of time. The squad is pretty good. It does need strengthening. It's a little bit light in areas. You'd like to think that maybe a striker could come in, and like Joe mentioned, a midfield player. I think that's needed. But if you can be lucky, and with suspensions and injuries, I don't think it's a huge problem. But you also want to bring the right players in. You don't just want to bring some numbers in, because that can really affect the squad. If you bring the wrong personality in, the wrong character in, it can have a knock-on effect in the dressing room, which then can affect players' performance in games. So if the right players there and the fees can be agreed, I think it's definitely worth Southampton doing that. And from the reports that we hear from the manager, the club are definitely looking to strengthen. So that's a good thing. But I wouldn't just bring players in for the sake of it. And if that has to wait till January, I think there's enough cover with the younger players in the squad, and the team has a real understanding now. So any player that comes into Southampton now, because they play such a unique way and such a philosophy in the club, it's going to take them time to bed in anyway. So I wouldn't force anything, but I'd like to see them bring a couple in, yes.
Joe, assuming we don't add to the squad before the window closes tomorrow, how do you think this current set of players will fare in the wider Premier League?
Well, firstly, I totally agree with everything Dean said there. I think you have to, buy the right player, and even if that means being patient, then that's fine. I know fans clamouring for transfer news and new incomings may not want to hear that, but I think it's kind of just what we expect. Maybe just outside the top 10. A few players, obviously, in the squad that have that real quality, with the likes of Danny Ings, James Ward-Prowse, Bednarak through the spine of the team, that are international players. That'll obviously keep Saints well away from the relegation picture, I would say, this season. But around the top 10, top half of the bottom half. And like Dean said, if they can bring in the right player right at the end of the window, then that would be really good considering the business they've done already. So, fingers crossed for Saints fans out there that they get a few of those over the line.
Yeah, so after today is the international break. A word on Danny Ings and James Ward-Prowse then for both of you. They're included in the England squad. There's 3 matches in a week. Is this a really good chance for them to get some minutes with the international side? Let's start with you, Joe.
I think so. I think, obviously, Ward-Prowse played against Iceland, did really well. And then Danny Ings, I think it'd be great for him to get a run in the team now, especially with Mourinho's comments about Harry Kane needing the break. I think that will work out well for Danny to get some more minutes for England. So I'm not sure what Ralph would think about that, but I think it'd be great for him. I mean, in my role with NBC Sports 5 years ago, I went to Liverpool and did a kind of a feature piece on Danny's journey from growing up in Southampton and playing for Bournemouth, Burnley. Then he had those injuries just after he broke into the England squad with Liverpool. So he's been really unlucky, but the way he's rebuilt his career at Saints and over the last 5 years is incredibly impressive. Spoken to his family a lot, who's still living in and around the Southampton area, and they're so proud of what he's doing. So I think if there's one player who deserves minutes for England in the upcoming break, it's Danny Ings, to kind of prove that he can be that alternative option to Harry Kane, and who knows, maybe partner him in the future for England. But I think both of those players there will be eyeing this break and seeing that there's a lot of players in this squad in 3 games, and saying, at least can get maybe 2 full games of England under my belt, and that would be a great thing for Saints, a great thing for those 2 players, and hopefully a great thing for England as well. Yeah,
Dean, do you reckon both Ward-Prowse and Ings can cement their places in that England side?
I would like to see it, because they're both definitely in form, and they both definitely deserve the call-up. I completely agree with Joe. Danny Ings is a fantastic option for England now, and the way he's scoring goals, how confident he is. I mention it every week, how happy he is. I think he deserves to start. It's always going to be difficult to replace Harry Kane, because he's England captain as well as the goal scorer. So he's the first name on the team sheet, and kind of rightly so. But for them to both get a start and some minutes would be really important. James Ward-Prowse is still young, still learning his trade as a centre midfield player. He's not played there regularly, probably only last season as a regular centre midfield player. So for him to get a start in the England midfield would be excellent for him, both confidence-wise and belief-wise, and that would lead to their improved performances for Southampton. I'd like to see them get some game time. From a selfish point of view, as a Southampton fan, not too much game time, because obviously Danny's got a history with injuries, and I think Ralph will be thinking the same, that if they both get an opportunity in play, that would be brilliant. But I wouldn't think he'd want them playing 3 games within a week and then have them come back to Southampton and continue the Premier League games. So a nice balance would be good. If they could both get a couple of performances in, Danny could get a couple of goals. I think it will benefit England, it will benefit Southampton, and benefit the players. So that would be a perfect balance.
Well, as always here on Saints Live, we love to hear from you, the fans, as well. Lots of comments coming into us. We'll get through a few of those now. Casey, thanks for getting in touch. She's joining us on Facebook. She says, I'm watching from Orlando in Florida. Come on, you Reds, one of my favourite places in the world. Godwin's watching from Malta. Dawn's with us from Australia. Wow, thanks for your company. We also have Wow here from Hong Kong. She's going for a 2-1 win, and Danny Ings to score both. Jonathan's commented saying, good to see an unchanged team, bring some confidence, and 3 points come on the Saints. A couple of fans getting in on the transfer deadline day chat as well. John O'Wild on YouTube thinks we need to bring in an understudy in that central midfield role. He says, we need competition for Ward-Prowse and Romeu. And Rob has said we need a defender and a midfielder before transfer deadline closes.
Yeah, I really hope that Danny does get 2 today. It really helped my fantasy team going forward. All right, so time to move it on, chaps. We're going to look at 5 forwards who have played for both Southampton and today's opponents, West Brom. We've got Shane Long, Charlie Austin, Jay Rodriguez, Kevin Phillips, and also Ricky Lambert. Now, to start this discussion, we'll go with you first, Joe. How would you sum up Shane's time at Southampton so far?
I think he's exceeded expectations, to be honest. I mean, he's been at Southampton a long time now and always seems to chip in with important goals. I remember working for NBC at Anfield for the League Cup semi-final against Liverpool a few years ago, and Shane's obviously, his late goal was pretty incredible, and I did my very best to stay professional and not celebrate in the press box, but it was certainly a good night out at Liverpool with some Saints fans after that. I think now his role's changed, and last season in particular, in the middle part of the season, before the lockdown, his partnership with Danny, I think, really brings the best out of Danny Ings and has helped Shea Adams come on leaps and bounds in the way they play. So I think that most Saints fans, when Shane Long arrived, they weren't quite sure what to expect, but now he's been a mainstay for a long time and just very reliable, and his experience is going to be really helpful for this young team going forward. So I love watching Shane Long play.
Yeah, Dean, as Joe just said, he is Mr. Reliable, really. You had him in your starting lineup for last week. What is it that impresses you most about Shane, and how do you assess his situation in the team at the moment?
Well, the main thing that impresses me is he's a team player. His work ethic is excellent, and he's very unselfish. I think Joe just mentioned there, he makes Danny Ings a better player because he'll hold the ball up well, he'll run in the channels, he'll distract other defenders so, Danny can get in positions to score. So that's a brilliant attribute from him. His experience is going to be important for the squad. I only last week that, I thought he would be good coming into the team because of that experience. Away at Burnley, there's going to be certain matches during the season where he's going to be needed. He can have that impact off the bench where 20 minutes to go when maybe Southampton are winning, he can stretch the game in behind, he can win headers. He does the defensive side of the game exceptionally well from the forward, in pressing the ball and trying to win the ball back. So I think he's been excellent for Southampton, and I would guess this season there's going to be games that he's going to be very important, and he'll come in and play in the team, especially when Shea's performance may go up and down because of the age he's at and the inexperience he has. So, no, I like Shane. I really do. I've played against him many times. He's a difficult opponent. And he does chip in, like Joe said, with some important goals when you don't quite accept it. And usually they're pretty good goals as well. So, no, he's been excellent for Southampton. Really good member of the squad. And he's at a stage of his career now where he can help players in training. He can help them understand what it is being a professional footballer and what it is to play for Southampton. So he's an important part of the squad.
The next striker we've selected is current West Brom forward Charlie Austin. Joe, he had a number of good years at the Saints. What do you make of his time with the club?
Yeah, I mean, Charlie is a very specific type of old-fashioned number 9 forward. When I was a young player actually at Salisbury City, I played against him when he was at Poole Town at the very start of his career and marked him. And in a word, I would say physical. That was what that experience was all about. Definitely let you know you're in a game. But I think, obviously he's unlucky with injuries with Saints. And had he not been injured during that Europa League group stage game against Hapoel, I really think we would have gone through that night because it used to take so much pressure off the team when he was playing under Claude Puel and they used to play in and around him. So I think he's one of those strikers that really needs to have the team set up to play to his strengths. Get the ball wide, get lots of crosses into the box, feed off him and his knockdowns. So I think maybe West Brom are playing a different style at the moment compared to what they did in the Championship last season slightly. So I'm not sure, what his future entails at West Brom. But for Saints, when they played to his strengths, he always chipped in with big goals. And he's done that throughout his career, hasn't he?
Dean, you've come up against Charlie Austin a few times in your career. What was he like to play against?
Well, I know Charlie. He's a really nice guy. He's a cheeky guy. He's a funny guy. But I used to hate playing against him. I really did. He was aggressive. He was physical, like Joe said. He was, how do we put it, mouthy on the pitch. He would try and wind you up. And I was quite easy to wind up, so I probably reacted a few times. But no, a really good player. Physical, holds the ball up well, scores important goals, and would always score against me when I ever played against him, or the teams I was playing against him. And he was actually a little bit quicker than people give him credit for. Especially when he got a sniff of a chance, he could really open his legs. I think that motivated him. He thought he could score a goal. But no, good player, nice bloke as well, really helpful, really good in the dressing room. I never played with him, but I can imagine what he was like. But yeah, I didn't like playing against him because he was it was a little bit annoying, put it that way.
Oh dear.
Just briefly on our next selection, Jay Rodriguez, Joe. Going back a couple of years, how exciting was that front three of Rodriguez, Lambert and Lallana?
Wow, I think that's probably, Saints have been blessed with some great forward partnerships and lines over the years, but that's got to be right up there. I think under Nigel and then Pochettino, those first few seasons back in the Premier League, for me, it was sort of a perfect balance there between that trio with Rodriguez, Lambert and Lallana. You had, the trickery, the pace, the hold-up play. They just were a very good partnership. And one game that sticks out in my mind was Fulham away. I think one of the first seasons after we got promoted back to the Premier League. They all scored a few cracking goals on that day. And I think most Saints fans now will look back on that time very fondly when those three were in the red and white stripes.
Casting our minds back a little bit further then, Joe, what do you remember of Kevin Phillips and his time at the club?
Growing up as a Saints fan in Southampton, I remember a lot of us at school were really excited. It was right around the time when Gordon Strachan was in charge, and we just got to the UEFA Cup and had Steaua Bucharest in the first round, and I'm pretty sure Philip scored in the first leg at St Mary's, if memory serves me correctly. But I was actually a huge fan of his. I couldn't quite believe that we got him from Sunderland at the time. Obviously, he did great things for them, and it was a real big transfer for the club. And his partnership with BT and a few of the other Saints forwards, really enjoyed that. And maybe because he was around the club around the time we got relegated, maybe people don't look around at his play too fondly, but looking at some of the stats, I think he scored over 25 goals for Saints, average of 1 goal every 3 games. So that's not bad for a striker. I really enjoyed watching him play, and I used to get a lot of stick from my schoolmates in Southampton because I would always put a Super Kev in the team.
Yeah, he had a relatively prolific career. Dean, you would have worked with him at Leicester towards the end of his career. What was it like to have that experience of his in the dressing room?
Yeah, brilliant. When he came in at Leicester, I think he came in January, so we were fighting at the top at the end of the Championship, and his experience was vital, really. He came in and worked with the strikers, so he'd pass his experience on to David Nugent, and he'd pass his experience on to Jamie Vardy, all about finishing. He scored some important goals as well during that spell. I remember one at Bournemouth. It was a last-minute goal. I'm not sure it's even went over the line, but we'll take it. But one thing with Kev, he worked extremely hard, and he was a really good example to the younger players. He would be in the gym after training. He would be doing his extra runs after the games, after training if he knew he wasn't playing. So a really good example to the younger players and even the more experienced players coming through. And he'd experienced a few promotions in his career. He played for England. He played for in the Premier League. He scored a lot of goals. So yeah, he's a real good impact on the squad. For that reason, Nigel Pearson kept him on as a striker coach for the next season, in our first season in the Premier League. So, no, brilliant signing by Nigel, and Kevin was a good bloke as well. He was good on a social night out as well. So, yeah, it's a good guy.
Well, last but certainly not least is, of course, Mr. Ricky Lambert. We could quite literally do a whole show on Ricky. I want to come to you both on this. If you could, what are your favourite Ricky Lambert moments, or your favourite, if you can pinpoint one? Dean, we'll start with you.
Where do I start, Kenzie? I mean, he was a talisman. He was a leader. But probably the best moment I would say for Ricky would have to be the first goal he scored in the Premier League at Manchester City. I think when he scored that goal, because I know before the game he was a little bit upset and a little bit frustrated the fact that he hadn't started the game. He'd been with the club since League One. He'd got through and he'd been, scoring goal. He'd been the top striker, been the top player, and Nigel left him out for tactical reasons. But he came on and scored that goal. I think he played a fantastic 1-2 with. I can't think who it was now, Stephen Davis maybe, I think, and then curled it in the bottom corner. And his relief and his celebration going to the fans was something that I will always remember. And just that, it wasn't for Southampton, but it was during his Southampton period, scoring that goal for England, coming on against Scotland and scoring that header was just something I think all of us watching as teammates, former teammates, friends, seeing him do that, seeing the journey he'd been on, is a memory I will always remember for him, because it was just a brilliant story, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. And I owe him a lot for my career, because he scored a lot of goals which made us a successful team. So no, brilliant player, and lots of memory of Ricky.
I was actually in the crowd that night, Dean, at Wembley when Ricky scored that goal, and I don't know if you can tell from my accent, but I'm actually Scottish, and I was sat amongst all the England fans in my Scotland jersey, and I got a lot of abuse that night and went home crying because of Ricky, so I didn't enjoy it.
Your least favourite Ricky Lambert member then. Well, Joe, same question to you then. So many to choose from. He is, of course, a Southampton legend, but if you could pick just one, what's your favourite Ricky memory?
Well, that one against Scotland is right up there. I was actually living in Scotland at the time, so I was the only person cheering in a pub in Edinburgh when that went in, so I left pretty quickly. But yeah, so many, like you said, Kenzie, so many to choose from. I'm going to go for his free kick against Chelsea in the 2-1 win in 2013. I was actually at St Mary's as a fan that day. I was right behind it. And it's just, Dean probably knew this as a player, but when Lambert was lined up a free kick from 30 yards out, you were just thinking, well, he's at least going to test the goalkeeper, or it's probably going to go in. And it was wonderful to have that feeling. He was a long way out for that one. And I think for Saints just getting promoted back to the Premier League then, like Dean said, it was kind of a reward to see Ricky scoring goals, getting the England call up, and for all that hard work he'd done to help drag Saints from League One back up to the Premier League. It was really great to see him, taking it to the bigger teams and scoring against Man City, Chelsea, and really making the most of his time in the Premier League. So yeah, Ricky Lambert, like you said, we could talk about him all day long. What a legend, and so many great goals.
Yeah, there's a few other players we could mention who played for both: Chris Perry, Chris Baird, Nigel Quasi. But we wanted to talk about Richard Chaplow. Now, Dean, he was a teammate of yours. What did he bring to the team, both on and off the pitch?
Yeah, Chappie was excellent. Really, really good signing by the club. He was very versatile. He had a variety to his game where he could either play centre midfield or he could play wide right. One thing that Richard had was excellent timing in the box from midfield play. He'd make some really intelligent runs. He scored some important goals. He was lively around the dressing room. He had a strong opinion with the players and with the manager, which was good, but it was always in the right manner. It was always for the benefit of the team. He was always laughing and joking. I remember him and Danny Butterfield were thick as thieves and got up to all sorts, so you had to be on your toes when you were around them too. But no, a good player, and he was very aggressive, Chappie, in a tackle as well. He liked to tackle, and he was probably one of the fittest players I played with as well. Kept himself in really good condition, worked hard in training. So a popular member of the squad, of the dressing room, and a good player as well. Probably would have, if you'd asked him, he would have liked to have played centre midfield a little bit more, but he played wide right, and he was very effective there because he could play more narrow, more centrally, and we could kind of go free in midfield. And but no, very useful to the squad. And some interesting memories of Chaffee. I'm smiling while I say it, but no, a good player, and a good player for Southampton.
Yeah, quite a character, wasn't he? Richard actually ended up moving stateside, didn't he, Joe? What do you remember of him, and do you know much about his career in the US?
Yeah, well, I remember him coming on loan, I think, to Saints first, and he made quite an impression when he had that loan spell, and he ended up coming permanently a few years later. So he always seemed to, like Dean said, he loved the tackle, but maybe didn't get enough respect for how good of a player he was on the ball. Really kind of creative and would make things happen and have those driving runs from midfield. But as for his career in the US, yeah, he joined Orange County Soccer Club as a player first, and they're sort of in the second tier of football in the States. And now he's there as an assistant coach, so he's stuck around there. No surprise, really, I guess, when you're playing against the likes of San Diego, LAFC, LA Galaxy, and Phoenix. That's not a bad place to live and sort of end your career there. So, he's made waves out in the States, and definitely a long way from over here in England. But it's great to see that he's carrying on that career and got that US connection.
Well, before we move on to our final section of the show, before kick-off, we're going to hear from the fans for one final time. Plenty of comments here. Thank you so much for everyone who's got in touch. Agent Awesome on YouTube, love that name, has said, agree with everything Dean said. It's all about players who suit the Saints' philosophy. Melissa on Facebook, hello to you. She said, can you wish my grandson Miles Gordon good luck? He's playing for the Saints under-10s at Brighton today. Oh, fantastic. Good luck, Miles. I'm sure you'll be absolutely fantastic. Christopher, good morning. He says Shane Long is the ultimate team player. We want him to score more, but his impact on the team is unmatched in the squad for what he brings. Yeah, he's a cracking player, isn't he? Carolina on YouTube has said, I'm going for a 3-1 win to the Saints today. We've got a comment here on YouTube, going for a 4-1 win for the Saints. Ingsy with all 4, wouldn't that be nice? Another comment here, going for 5-0 for the Saints today. Lots of you guys predicting big wins. A final comment here then, 3-1 to the Saints today, 2 for Ingsy and 1 for Armstrong. So it seems that the fans are feeling extremely confident, Steve.
Yeah,
and
people
some big
going
wins.
For an absolute goal fest today.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Well, speaking of that, It could be a goal fest, because if last week's game was tight, this one promises to be anything but. West Brom have actually been the first top flight side to concede 11 goals in their first 3 games since 1963. Dean, what kind of match are you expecting this afternoon?
Well, I'd expect an open game because West Brom are conceding goals. They're very, very open in their approach. They lack that little bit of Premier League experience. I think only Jake Livermore has played a number of games in the Premier League for them. They've got pace and energy in the younger boys, so they will try and attack and they will try and outscore teams. They showed that against Chelsea, being 3-0 up at home, but then obviously drawing the game 3-3. They lost to 5-2 to Everton. So they've got their frailties. I don't think they've quite got the structure and the personnel quite right yet, and they'll be looking to add some experience to the squad before the deadline closes. But I think there will be goals. There'll be opportunities for Southampton to find them areas, to isolate players one-on-one. If the front two can combine with Armstrong, then there'll be some chances. And obviously Danny Ings is lethal in front of goal. So, yes, I think it will be an open game. Or you can look at it and they have conceded all them goals and they will come and sit and hold a structure and think we don't want to concede too many goals. But I think their natural approach is to attack. So they may do that for 20 minutes, half an hour. And then I think they'll go back to their normal ways. So, yeah, I could see a few goals today.
Well, Joe, I want to invite your thoughts on this, because West Brom's keeper, Sam Johnston, has not only conceded the most goals in the Premier League, he's also made the second highest number of saves, suggesting that West Brom are allowing a lot of shots on their goal. What do you kind of make of the way they set up and what you're expecting from them today?
Similar to what Dean said, really. I think they are a very attack-minded team, and Slavan Bilic, his team at West Ham, were very similar. If you remember a few years back now, they attacked teams, they would concede a lot. But we're very exciting to watch. So I think this will actually suit Saints pretty well with the way we play. There'll be a lot of gaps on the break. If they can get the press right, then I think that we'll have a lot of opportunities to score. As you said, a lot of teams have had a lot of shots against them already. I do worry about maybe Saints playing that high line, and West Brom were very good on the counter, especially against Chelsea and then against Everton before that. They've been quite unlucky so far, so they create a lot of goal-scoring chances themselves. And yeah, I was just looking back to sort of that high line that Saints play, and I'm hoping that we can be patient. As Dean said, they might sit back a bit deeper than they usually do. So Saints have to be quite patient today, I think, to break them down. But they'll certainly get opportunities, and then getting an early goal is the big difference. I think we've seen so far. Obviously, against Burnley, got the early goal, gave Saints a really good platform to build on. But that hasn't always been the case under Ralph Hasenhüttl. You create a lot of chances, but just haven't quite got that early goal to set us up. So I think we'll see an open, entertaining game and a bit of a goal fest. But now I said that, it's probably going to be 0-0.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, let's hope not. As we mentioned at the top of the show, it is an unchanged side. Dean, in your opinion, which players need to put in a performance today?
Well, we're 3 games in, so I'm not sure any players need a performance, but I think some players maybe would like an improved performance. And just little things, I think the teams, I think I've mentioned in previous shows, the teams are actually performing pretty well. The performances have been pretty good in spells. The stuff that needs to be addressed, which were last week. But I'd probably like to see Djenepo, bring that spark, bring that creativity. I mentioned his work effort and his fitness looks excellent. He looks like he's understanding the role better. But if we could just see that little bit of magic that we know we've got, I think he would like to show that as well. Obviously, Shea getting a goal, that would be good for his confidence and for his belief. Even though I don't think he looks short of confidence, I just think as a striker, you always judge yourself on goals. So for him to get a goal, and then maybe McCarthy just being a little more dominant, coming for crosses, and a little more aggressive when the ball comes over the top and coming out of his area, just to give that a little bit more belief to the defenders and trust in him. But I think they're just improvements. It's not that they need a performance or they've been performing badly. It's just that little bit of detail that could maybe improve them individually. But I think on a whole, it's been a good start for Southampton.
Now, Joe, if Southampton can make it back-to-back wins today, 6 points going into the international break is pretty respectable. Do you think 3 is an underachievement, though?
Yeah, it probably would be, considering the 4 games they've had to open the season. I think 3 of the 4 most Saints fans would say were pretty winnable. So, yeah, I think the minimum expectation when you looked at the fixtures in summer would be to get 6 points from those first 4 games and then move on. When I look at the next 4 games after this, I'm going to be playing some teams in form. Chelsea, obviously, off the back of a good win. Everton are flying. Aston Villa haven't lost yet. And then Newcastle look a kind of a different beast this season with some of the players they've signed. So I think if you can get a win today for Saints, 6 points after the first 4 games, that's pretty much half of the course where we would have expected them to be. So yeah, hopefully a win, lots of goals, and a lot of positivity going into the international break. And I think that sets Saints up for a busy period, and hopefully one we can kick on again.
Yeah, hopefully a win indeed. And as you mentioned earlier in the show, we are expecting an open game. So I am going to put pressure on you both now and ask you for a score prediction. Dean, we'll start with you. What do you reckon today?
Well, I think we've mentioned it's going to be an open game. There's going to be chances, there's going to be opportunities, and it will be very much like who takes their opportunities. I think Southampton will win the game. I think last week would have really helped them, settle them down to get that first win and the first 3 points on the board. So I will go for a 3-1 Southampton win today.
Joe, your first time on Saints Live. Are you going to play it safe or are you going to go for a brave scoreline?
Well, before we started, I said 5-0 on Shea Adams to score 5. So that was just to test the connection. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Southampton, play it safe. I think for my debut, I just got to do that and then try and bend myself in. So 2-1 to Saints.
Brilliant, great stuff, chaps. Well, it's a bit of a wet and miserable day on the South Coast, but hopefully the Saints can brighten it up for us with 3 points against West Brom at St Mary's. Do join us after the match for the final whistle, and we'll see you then.